The strife wasn't between Abram and Lot. The strife was between their herdsmen. They couldn't get along. By the way, be careful of strife. Let me say this, strife does not belong in the church. And frankly, strife doesn't belong in the home. I'm glad that I grew up in a stress-free zone. Whenever I went home, home was a wonderful place to be. When my dad was coming in on the weekend after being on the road all week, listen, we never anticipated strife at all. You've heard me tell the story. My mom had trained us. We thought it was a big deal. One of us and my brother might get Dad's shaving kit, and I might get the suitcase, and somebody else would get the briefcase that had the logs and everything in it. But we all carried something. That way, Dad didn't have anything in his arms except Mom. And my mother would more times than not, she would run and she would jump up, and it was like some Hollywood movie. She'd wrap her legs around his waist and give him a big old hug. Of course, she's always been small. But listen, it wasn't about strife. Strife does not belong in a Christian's life. Now, I understand there's strife in the world, but the Bible also tells me great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall what? Listen, strife will cause a person to begin to compromise, and that's exactly what happened. The beginning of Lot's downfall was a strife where his workers could not get along with each other. And by the way, I think there was a better way of dealing with it than simply saying, well, you go your way and I'll go my way. Sometimes you just need to, somebody should have brought those boys in and had a talk with them. Somebody said, if you enjoy the job that you have, it's time you guys learn to get along. Amen. Not I'm going to go my way, you go your way, and that's going to settle it. That doesn't settle anything. Step number 2, verse number 10. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere. Before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the others. Next thing that came was what I call sight. He lifted up his eyes and beheld Jordan. Parents, please listen to me. You better be careful what's in front of your children's eyes. We have so put the world in front of them. I remember when there was a show years ago. I forget the guy's name, but it was called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Y'all remember that show? What was that guy's name? Anybody remember? It's not a trick. You know, he talked with a British accent, and we're going to introduce Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. That's the first time I saw, wow, those are some amazing places. I mean, the only place I saw before that was Beverly Hillbillies with a cement pond. But listen, young people nowadays, they're just constantly, they're images to appeal to them, to want this, to use their sight. And by the way, they can't understand. People like the Kardashians make life look wonderful. I don't know anything wonderful about divorce, divided homes. I don't know anything wonderful about that, but the problem is a young person doesn't see that. They just see the glamour, the glitz, and all the rest of it, and they get fooled very easily. They see the stuff of the world. Be careful. Try to limit what they see. And by the way, if your parents don't limit what you see, you better be careful what your eyes covet, what you look at. The lust of the eyes fans the flames of the lust of our flesh. What your eyes covet can distort your priorities. But they didn't have talked about that. The average young person growing up now, we're talking about young people that ride on the bus, come on Sunday. It's incredibly sad what their goals are in life. I have yet to hear a young person in a long time have a worthy goal. Nobody wants to be a fireman, policeman, electrician, preacher. They all listen. They think it's all going to be about, well, I'm going to be a gamer. I had to call the heating and air conditioning, called by Adam Ash today. The furnace wasn't working right back in the office area. And so he came out, and there's 2 furnaces that run that. One of them is not working, but he said it could be at least 6 weeks before we can get the part. He said most any time now, And I told my wife again, I said, it's sad. The next generation doesn't understand. Okay, so you want to be a social influencer. Now, how does that help anything in life? You want to be a gamer. How's that helping anything in life? And by the way, even you say, well, I want to write software, computer games. Okay, so now we got more games than ever, more people playing. Who's going to fix a furnace? By the way, I'll tell you what, a wise young person, even if they're a little bit selfish, they say, you know what, I'm going to learn trade. But Brother Andrews, I think now the average plumber makes $150,000 a year. Electrician about $200,000 a year. You know why? Because you can't find them. It's like pulling teeth to find anybody to fix anything when it's down. And I'm thankful for the ones that still have character. Are you listening to me? But nobody has any of these. They want to get rich quick, or they want something for nothing. How about working for it? Amen. How about get a job in a factory? Get married, raise a family. By the way, I promise you, it's not on the radar for the average young person. It's not in their interest whatsoever. That's sad. And again, it goes back to sight. Here's the sad part about it is they don't have enough foresight to see where we're headed to. Somebody's got to process the meat. And somebody's got to drive the truck, and somebody's got to work at the grocery store. Amen. And somebody's got to be in the banking industry. Somebody has to do all these things, or we're going to be in a world of trouble. Next, verse number 11, chapter 13. And Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east and separated themselves the one from the other. The third thing that led to compromise with the wicked, first it started with strife, then his sight, what he was looking at. And by the way, when strife comes in life, one of the first things you'll do is begin to look where the grass seems greener on the other side. That led to the third thing, which was a selection. You made a bad choice and chose the plains of Jordan. Listen, wrong priorities lead to compromise. Lot had no idea what was coming, and we're not going to be able to probably finish all this evening, but he had no idea what was coming. You understand later he's going to be living in a cave? You understand later on that his wife is dead? You understand that his son-in-laws mocked him, and his daughters, they were destroyed with fire and brimstone? And you understand the two daughters that survived and connived together to get him drunk and lay with her own father? By the way, I don't think there was any great family get-together or warm feeling when your grandson is your son. Messed up family. And by the way, you won't find Lot's descendants being blessed. Wrong choices, wrong path. Verse number 11 again, then we'll see a separation. We need not read the verse again. But a separation from the godly influence. That was a huge, huge, huge mistake. Listen, you better stay as close to the right influence as you can. Amen. And listen, you better stay in church. You know, again, Wednesday night I watch the service, Sunday I watch the service, and I every time I look at my wife and say, I know it sounds like a broken record, but why would anybody choose this? I'd rather be at church any day. I want to be around God's people. I want to fellowship with people. Amen. I don't just want some facts spit out there, and you can find that anywhere. I need God's people. Amen. And so he separated himself from godly people, which will get you into trouble. And that's why going to church is so important. Every once in a while, someone will say, well, who says you have to go to church 3 times a week? Nobody. But my job as a pastor is I'm to be the one to call out the assembly. If I think we need a men's meeting, we need a men's meeting in addition to a Wednesday night service and a Sunday service. Somebody say amen. If we think we need a ladies' meeting, by the way, we have a missions conference. Why? We need an emphasis on missionaries so that you'll be reminded there's more than you in this world. Amen. But the reality of it is God made it very clear, forsake not the assembling yourselves together as the manner of some is, and so much more as you see the day what? Approaching. Why? Because more than ever, we need to encourage each other. More than ever, we need fellowship. More than ever, we need to, listen, if you get away from godly people and get around the wrong crowd, after a while, they'll begin to influence you, and you'll think, well, I'm the one that's off. When you get around the right crowd, it's a reset button that reminds you, no, I'm not the one that's off. They're the one that's off in their influence and what they want. Verse number 12 of chapter 13, Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward what? Pitched his tent toward Sodom. The word I have down there is simply sojourning. Lot dwells in the cities of the plain, a little bit closer, now to Sodom. By the way, I don't think for 1 minute that Lot ever thought, I'm gonna live the lifestyle, I'm gonna accept, I'm gonna run around with those people. You understand how wicked Sodom was? I mean, this is a place where, listen, you talk about not safe. When the angels come later on, listen, the men try to break down the door and grab them to have their way with them. I want to tell you, it was a wicked, wicked, wicked place. Come on now. And by the way, people get upset when you use the word sodomy. Let's just say that it was men wanting women. Listen, it's all perverted. You're so lustful that somebody new came to town and you want to get with them. Again, just beyond perverted in their mindset and their thinking and their goals, but he began to sojourn. Sojourn just means he wasn't going to go there and stay, I don't think, but he saw that, moved a little bit closer. The crowd of people that you rub shoulders with for fellowship and fun will influence you. If you fear the opinions of others and are more concerned about what they think than what God thinks, you'll compromise with the wicked. I feel sorry for people nowadays. They've filled their life with so much stuff, they have almost no walk with God. They're constantly more afraid of what other people are going to think instead of what God thinks. While we're on vacation, again, I told Mrs. Lamb, one day I actually had a privilege. Every day I went down and I exercised, and I would ride a bike for about 8 miles, and then I would go down to the gym and working on getting weight down, getting my knees back in better shape, hopefully. But I went down to the gym one day, and the lights were off. So I went back up, and there was a worker there, and I said, excuse me, who do I need to see about getting the lights turned on the gym? And he said, well, I can help you with that. So we went over to where the panel was, and I said, well, some of these are labeled and some of these are not. He said, well, if you don't mind, would you read them to me? He said, I can't read or write. He was there working, and so I read them to him. And anyhow, we flipped the breakers on, and he said, well, let me go down with you and make sure they're on. Long story short, he began to give me his story. His wife had died a few months ago after 20 years of marriage, and his first wife had walked out on him after 23 years and cleaned him out. And this poor guy, he just had a rough time. But he had a shirt on, it said Big 12, which West Virginia's in a Big 12 conference, but in the 12 it had the books of the Bible. Well, I knew he couldn't read or write according to what he said, and I said, is there a reason you wear that shirt? And he said, why? I said, well, I don't know if you know, but it has the books of the Bible written all over it. He said, well, it was my wife that died, and so I just wear it and kind of feel close to her. I said, well, do you know what those books talk about? He goes, no, I don't. I said, do you mind if I take a few minutes and tell you? Amen. Amen. Best thing happened on vacation. So you got saved right there in the middle of the gym floor. So what are you trying to say? I told my wife, it's sad to me we get so caught up in things. I said, I thought I went to work out, and I thought I was on vacation, and God said, there's a fella, if somebody doesn't explain it to him, he can't even read a Bible. Amen. He can't even understand what it says. And so anyhow, be careful. If we don't take the time, and that's what's sad, we think more about what does the world think about me than what we think about what God thinks about us. Amen. The fear of the Lord, according to Proverbs 29:25, bringeth a snare. Matthew 6:24, no man can serve two masters. Did you hear me? No man can serve what? He's either going to hate the one and love the other, or love the one and hate the other. But listen, you can't serve both. You can't have one foot in the world and the other in church. You may have your body in church, but your foot's only one place. You're either on board with the Lord, trying to please the Lord, or you're trying to please yourself. And by the way, if you live to please yourself, you're going to leave a bad example one of these days for other people. I often say to Mrs. Lamb, you know, it's sad to me. I think there's going to be a lot of people when their life's over, they're going to wake up one day almost in horror and realize, I didn't leave a good example. My grandkids are going to die and go to hell because my priorities in life had nothing to do with God, had nothing to do with the right things. And by the way, it doesn't matter how much stuff you leave them, how much money you leave them, it's not going to buy their way there. Amen. All righty, according to my watch, it's right at 8 o'clock. We're going to take about 4 minutes to pray.